my friends, you intelligent people out there, y'all watching me on Strong Inspirations. And it's not just me, it's my guests. They the star of the show. The guy that I got coming on today, he the star of the show. I'm just gonna try to ask a couple intelligent questions and I'm gonna let him do the talking. You know who I am. I'm Anthony Brogdon, man. I'm an ordinary guy trying to do something special in keeping Black history alive. This is where you can come and you can hear stories. I call them stories. They're facts. They're information. They're happening in people's lives back in the day. And I let the people tell it. I mean, they the experts. They give it to you firsthand. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I really don't do no research on what they're gonna talk about. We talk about it a little bit beforehand, but I really don't do any because I wanna be so naive that when I ask questions, it's the kind of questions I think people who are naive don't wanna know. It's not over your head, but it's good questions, maybe. I've had people say that. Yeah, did I say my name? I'm Anthony Brogdon. I don't know, but if I didn't, I'm saying it again because I'm so happy. I've had a good day interviewing people, and my man is gonna put it down on you today. You know what? I check this out. I got a few things going on here. I'm excited, and I want to say I've reached 500 subscribers yesterday. That's not bad.
Not at all.
In 8 months. I want to reach 5,000 by the end of the year. I got 4 months to do it. I'd like for this thing to just happen. And it's going to take you all, my friends, and me to keep posting and tweeting. Follow me on Twitter at A Strong Dream. Like my Facebook pages, Business in the Black, Black Business Book, and Black History Then and Now. Like those. What else? Follow me on Instagram. I don't do much on Instagram on this regard, but I'm on Instagram. I think it's A Strong 11. You can follow me on Instagram. But then also, what I like for you to do is understand that I like doing this. I'm enjoying this. This is fun for me, and this is what I intend to do, you know, for a long, long time, because there's a lot of stories that need to be told, and I'd like asking the questions. This is cool, man. This is cool. And how about this? I'm trying to elevate it. You know, I'm working on my elevations. In terms of my presentation and so on and so forth. Got light flashing in my eyes. I can't hardly see the screen, but I'm at the, they told me I need to lighten up and all that kind of stuff. I'm working on all those things. I'm getting better. That's my plan. I get, you start somewhere and you get somewhere else. That's the plan. I get better. How about this? I had a dream, a thought that came in one day, said, hey, because I interviewed a guy out of Quindaro, Kansas, that his great-great-grandfather escaped from Missouri by walking across the Missouri River when it froze to get to Quindaro. Man, that's an amazing story. So how about this? I want y'all to do this, my friends. Meet me in Quindaro. I'm having a festival in Quindaro, Memorial Day weekend 2022. And so we're gonna have a party in a barn that Friday night. And we're gonna throw down, because I throw down. We're gonna do some line dances and everything else you do, some stepping and whatever you do. And we're gonna ask people to show us some of that stuff, whatever they do. Come on, it's a family affair. And then Saturday, we're gonna have a tour of all around Quindaro, saw where the slaves walked across the river, my man's grandfather, great-great-grandfather business, and all the historical sites there. It's a little small town. And then we also gonna have a big picnic. We're gonna have stages where you're gonna have performers, bands, DJs, speakers, health fair. We're gonna put vendors. We're gonna put it all together for you. Have a good time. Then we're gonna have a bonfire that night. We look up at the stars and all that. Like you see in the movies, right? And then Sunday we're gonna wake up. And you ain't gotta wake up early because you might be out a little late. We're gonna wake up, we're gonna have some church service. You know, some of the pastors in town gonna, you know, say some sermons and then pour libations and then people can leave comfortably. We're gonna even try to find a way that people can camp out there. That would really be, I do that, stay in a hotel. I stay at hotels all the time. I wouldn't mind camping out. And that might be kind of cute. So we're gonna add flavor, and that's Memorial Day weekend. We're putting everything together, websites and all that. Stay tuned. Do this for me, my friends. Subscribe to the channel. Just hit the button. It's free. It don't cost you no money. Just hit the subscribe. I'm up to, I told you, over 500. I think I'm at about 505 now. Hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Like this video. My man, he's sitting there. He said, hey, man, I got something to tell you, because you're going to trip out of where he's located. You're going to trip out of where he's located. And when he tells you, you know what I mean. So like this video for sure. Hit the notifications bell. Because when I put the new videos up, and I'm putting them up, I'm doing 5, 6 of them a week now. It's that much content that you get a ding, you get some kind of notification. I don't know what they do to you, but that you know there's a new one, you could be the first to watch it. And you can run out here and tell people. And that's the other thing, like I said earlier, tell somebody about strong inspirations. Don't keep it to yourself. Please don't do that. That's an injustice to the community, to keep it to yourself. Don't tell nobody where you found this information. And how about this? I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I'm gonna say it right now. If you know a Black history story, hit me up. How about that? Because I'm looking for them. Unique stories, like I found this gentleman that's gonna be on the channel. Look me up. My email address is inspirationsbystrong@gmail.com. Don't send me no crazy stuff, please, because it don't, don't do that. That ain't cool. Just if you know somebody I should email or interview, hit me up. You got some other thoughts, send me an email. How about that? I ain't giving out my telephone number though. I ain't doing that because there's some crazy people out there. There's gonna be some haters. I know they're coming at me because they what's that critical mind theory stuff that they talking about? We overcoming that. You ain't got to go to classroom. Just come to Strong Inspirations. On a personal note, you might know I'm a filmmaker. I did this documentary called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. Slaves who went to college, slaves who owned businesses and used the profits to buy their freedom. And I got a little known secret for you, my friends. Madam C.J. Walker ain't the first rich Black woman. She was flamboyant and she was wealthy. She did, tremendous wealth. She's not the first though. She worked for a Black lady. Yeah, it was in that movie, and it's in that other movie about Madam C.J. Walker. It's in my film. The lady's name, Sarah Breedlove. And I talk about much more. The movie starts and ends with a guy that was 101 years old at the time that I interviewed him. And he says in there, you can't tell me nothing. I've been wherever y'all coming from. You need to watch my film. It's streaming on Amazon. You can watch it there. And then the other thing is I wrote a book on this. It's called Black Business Book. It's 200 facts. I had somebody send me notes, said, man, I really like your book because it's easy to read. I don't even give you no commentary because I'm not trying to think that I know enough to interpret the fact, to give you my slant on the fact. I let the facts stand for themselves. It's over 200 or something. If you know everything in my book, I give you your money back. That's the contest. And every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. And I got a bunch of them going to them schools real soon, when things start really kicking in gear for the schools. And I've identified, you buy 10 books, I donate one in the book in your honor. However many of them you want me to donate, I do it directly in your honor and put your name on the paper and all that stuff. My book and my movie are available on my website, businessintheblack.net. I haven't said this too many times, but I'm starting to do a little bit more of this. Follow me on Twitter at A Strong Dream. All right, my man sitting there, he said, man, come on, let me get it on, man. Let me get it on. Let me get it on here. All right, one more second then. I got to tell you one more thing. I use that word strong a lot. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. That's my introduction to the brother on the channel. He is strong, man. Come on, introduce yourself. Let's get it on.
My name is Philip Thompson. I'm the director and board president of the Idaho Blackhistory Museum.
Idaho Blackhistory Museum. They got a Blackhistory Museum, and you're the executive director.
Yes, sir. And I'm also the descendant of my great-great-great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather built the building in which the museum is housed, which is also the first Black church established in the state of Idaho.
Okay, I got to talk about you. I do this with everybody. That don't mean no harm. How y'all get to Idaho? From where? Where in the South y'all started? Do you know?
It's funny that you mentioned when you spoke about Missouri. My great-great-grandfather and his father-in-law started in Missouri. They were preachers. He started a church there, started a church in Pueblo, Colorado, then started a church in Boise, Idaho, and then he ended up in LA. And so much like other Black narratives, he came from Missouri, and the other side of my family came from Arkansas. And so we ended up in Idaho. Idaho was a place that afforded Blacks an opportunity that we were not afforded elsewhere. And those of which that were lucky enough to find out about it came here and found themselves in a situation that was actually far better than the vast majority of our country, which is contrary to the narrative of what most people think of when you think of Idaho.
Well, okay, well, you said something. I don't know what to think of Idaho. I mean, what is that story that you say is different?
So if you look at like the three factors that control any given people the most, is like you exclude them from the system that is at play to ensure they are permanent second-class citizens, right?
Right.
If you look at what was done to the reservation system in America by moving Native Americans to a given barren piece of land, cutting them off from society, you kind of ensure their demise.
Right.
In Nazi Germany, Hitler actually stole that model from America when he came up with the Jewish ghettos. Okay. Cut them off, insulate them, isolate them. You ensure their demise by doing so. The odd thing about Idaho is that Blacks were afforded the opportunity to have land ownership in Idaho. So that is one of the biggest three factors that contribute to any given people moving themselves upward or on the social mobility scale. Blacks were also afforded the opportunity to have education. We desegregated schools in 1871. So that's literally 100 years before the vast majority of this country.
Yeah, right.
Idaho Territory was founded as a free territory. In 1864, when a large amount of Blacks in America were still in bondage, a Black man named Lewis Walker came to Silver City, Idaho, which is a little small mining town about an hour and a half from Boise, who was a businessman from Maryland, ended up owning like half the town, did quite well for himself, was beloved by the people in the city. And he was made that all possible in Boise, Idaho, when in most of our country, we were excluded from land ownership, or we were living in a system that made sure you stayed a second-class citizen. And the last thing that contributes to any people being able to move upward is like jobs. Idaho has never been a state that has been overly populated, or you have this stratification of society that you have the haves and the have-nots and people fighting against one another. I mean, we only have 1.8 million people, right, and a third of them live in the greater Boise metro area. So jobs have always been plentiful here. And I'm not saying they started us up off the top, but the fact that you could be gainfully employed and that you could also buy land. I have the deed from my great-great-grandfather's land. He satisfied his mortgage in 1917. So for a financial institution to offer you the paperwork saying this land is yours, we have it on record at our end as well, in 1917, anywhere in America, is a window into why Idaho was so much different.
Okay, let me stop you there. How about this?
Yeah.
How did they know Idaho was going to be good like that? They knew it was free. The word had spread. Let me tell you what I come to understand. is that the west of Kansas, Idaho being some of them states, they was fighting they wanted to know if it was going to be a free territory or not.
Yeah.
The free part won over, even though they did have some slaves somewhere, I'm sure.
Not in Idaho, we actually never did. And so Lincoln fast-tracked us into statehood, broke us off from a territory during the Civil War because he was fearful of what you just spoke of. He didn't want us to go on the side of the South because I found a few constituents of Confederates took refuge in Idaho. That's why you have a town called Atlanta, Idaho. You have Dixieland, Idaho, because during the war, people came up here because we were just, unincorporated land. But Lincoln actually fast-tracked us into territory and then statehood, ensuring that we would always be a free state. And because we're a resource-rich area, he wanted access to our natural resources to fund the war. We have diamonds, we have
the people who were racists and slave owners. That was a mentality. There was a mentality of people in Idaho that we don't want to be that way, no matter what the law was. Was it, a Christian type people that began to move over that way, or, you know what I mean? Because if the governor wanted to act a certain foolish way, he could have.
Well, so what was funny is that it wasn't like a racial utopia. Idaho used to be 30% Chinese. Between 1885 and 1910, they murdered, ran off, rioted, and killed and got rid of or forcibly extricated the Chinese from the state of Idaho. So it wasn't that we were some utopia that, hey, bring me your downtrodden, bring me your whatever. The Basque, we have the largest population of Basques outside of the Basque country in Boise, Idaho, or Idaho in general. They weren't treated great when they got here either. They were like second-class citizens. We have the oldest synagogue west of the Mississippi, and the first practicing Jew elected governor in America was governor of Idaho, Moses Alexander. Again, it wasn't utopia, but my theory is we're large enough, we had enough resources, and the people who came to Idaho were worried about surviving. They didn't have the luxury to buy into this social stratification of, well, I'm not one of them. Okay. The Mormons found refuge here. When the Mormons were getting murdered back east, they found refuge in Idaho and Utah. Now, it wasn't, perfect and hospitable because Mormons were forbidden from running for legislature in Idaho in our early history. Now it's the biggest religion at the legislature. So it was simply a place that afforded you an opportunity to do you. It was much more of what one would think of as like a libertarian ideology. Okay. Like people were accustomed to letting other people do their thing, even if it's not my thing. I mean, Idaho's a funny state. We had lynchings, but never a lynching of a black person.
Oh, well, who they lynch? That was just a police
vigilantes. It's just a different history. But again, it's not because we weren't utopia. Blacks are about to eclipse 1% of the state's population. So we've never been deemed an existential threat.
I got you.
And the first influx of like groups of blacks were during World War II when they built 2 air bases here.
So that
means all black. Go ahead.
Do Buffalo soldiers come through Idaho? Is that something?
They did back in the day. They fought a fire out here. They came through here. There was a great fire. I always mess up the year 1905 or 1910 that like almost torched. Man, I can't believe it's up north, but black migration didn't take place at the time. They came here for work and then left. Even like during the mining boom, they came as a one-off or periodically, but not groups of families migrating here. My family that came, the one half was farmers. They were from Oklahoma Territory, and they came up here because you could homestead. They were given homestead land in the next city over, Canyon County, and the other half, like I told you, they came here finding a church. But again, land ownership, that opportunity that you can ink out survival on your own, they were afforded that here.
Was there are they a part of and I'm just guessing that maybe you know the answer, this is the history I know. Were they a part of Trail of Tears? So
this is what's crazy is I caught flack a couple of years ago because we were talking about the Trail of Tears, and I mentioned in the article, I said, well, you know who really had it the worst who really caught hell on the Trail of Tears were the slaves of the Native Americans. And everybody flipped out. And I said, well, don't get it twisted. Native Americans had black slaves as well. And Oklahoma Territory had many bands that had slaves. So there's some different, I'm not getting into the minutia of like family history of who came from where and bloodlines or whatnot, but especially the move from Oklahoma to here. I mean, Oklahoma wasn't even a state yet when they left. But the opportunity was available for them in Idaho. And that's why they picked here, because they could homestead and they were farmers.
So back in the day, they didn't have a Jim Crow type scenario in Idaho.
So yeah, we never had, like, we had redlining, but we didn't have legislative segregation of schools and society after 1871. I'm not saying there wasn't problems. You didn't run into, issues, but from a societal effort to ensure you would be divested and not part of what we're doing, that wasn't as profound as it was in many places of the US, especially like civil rights. We passed civil rights legislation 3 years before the feds, 3 or 4 years. I can't recall 4.
Was there a particular area of, let's say, Idaho, the state, and then maybe Boise or whatever, where most of the blacks moved to?
Good point. So it was funny. So Pocatello used to have the biggest black population in Idaho because they had Pocatello, Idaho, which is a city 3 hours from here, because they have the railroad system, right? And then another city who had a large black population was Mountain Home, because that was the Air Force base. Boise, Idaho has never had like a large black population, but the largest concentration of black people lived in a neighborhood called the River Street District, Street area. But that was also, it wasn't, that was the biggest concentration of blacks, but most blacks didn't live there. It was a weird mutually exclusively event, right? It was where a lot of Greeks live, Italians live, other people who had come here who were at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, they lived there. So there was a large concentration of blacks. Like my grandparents lived there before they moved to the house my mother was raised when she was like 5.
I got you.
But it was kind of like a weird mismatch of people who were on their way up. But again, they owned the land when they lived there. Many of them. Many people still there now. Of course, that neighborhood's been gentrified and it's like prime real estate.
Right.
But most blacks did not live there, even though that was the biggest concentration of blacks. Again, that's just the difference of how our city has matured. We didn't have this like stratification of, oh, the Southeast Asians live over there, the Jews live over there, the Italians live over here. We've always been a city where kind of everybody lives everywhere. So you didn't have the same variables at play that you would in many bigger cities.
I got you.
Everybody being systemically separated.
Does Idaho have, what does Idaho look like as a landscape? Is it just flat land? Is there some mountains? Is there lakes or what?
We have everything. So like we're one of the most like environmentally diverse states out there. You can find like all, you can find a desert, you can find mountains, you can find ice caves, you can find, we have everything in like a 200-mile area, right? I mean, it's just this very nuanced, weird environment. But because of that, we also have great resources. We've got plenty of water. We've got mountains. We've got ski resorts. You've got a desert in the middle of nowhere, and then you've got, I mean, just you've got the longest lava cave in America is in Idaho. So we have like one of the most geothermically active places in the America, but they're all out in the middle of nowhere. So we get a ton of earthquakes, but it doesn't really ever affect anything. They're little tiny earthquakes because they hit in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, really?
We're the 10th windiest state in the nation. And so now in the last probably like 15, 20 years, we have wind farms like crazy where there used to be nothing generating electricity. So it's just, I mean, I've got a ski resort 20 minutes, well, 30 minutes up the hill from me because you have to go to a much higher elevation. And then if you go an hour the other way, you can find a desert. You can find a sand dune, literally. We have the Bruno sand dunes where in the middle of nowhere, you have these roaming hills of sand as if you're in the middle of Sahara for no apparent reason.
Really? How
Yeah.
about this one? Is Idaho known, or can you name a few of the early Black business people that really became successful? Is any of those names strike out at us?
Yeah, like Walker, the gentleman I said came here in 1864, that like made a killing from Maryland in Silver City. Think about it, that's when most blacks in this country were still enslaved. So the fact that he was able to come to Idaho and be a business owner, and not, he didn't have like a business, he owned multiple buildings, and like half the city in which he lived served on umpteen boards. 1864. The fact that there weren't that many black people here that long ago is insane.
Yeah, sure.
We have a mountain called Black Man's Peak, MON, that was his last name. He was a miner who came out here in, I believe, the 1870s, and did quite well. We have another natural area that I can't remember what it's called, that's named after another black person who came here and did well. Idaho is just a really different narrative, because they didn't come in mass, because nobody knew about Idaho. And the only reason my grandmother's people came is because word had gotten back via Pocatello that there were jobs in Idaho, and they first sent out one of her siblings to get married. You know how we used to do, like, you know, a family knew a family, and then and then one by one the kids came out, and then we went from Pocatello, or Minidoka actually, to Boise, Idaho.
Does that mean that there is a lot of mixed families, black, white, mingling, black men, white women, vice versa, because it's so laissez-faire, I guess? You know, is that
I wouldn't
Idaho?
go so far as laissez-faire. Nowadays, I say it was. It's funny you should say that, because so when I was a child, it was far and few between. My first cousin is what you just spoke of, right? Her dad's black, my uncle, her mother's white. And then there was like one other girl we went to school with, it was the same way, but over by and large, there weren't many. It was rare, right?
Oh,
It wasn't,
really?
oh yeah, it wasn't like a socially accepted norm, to the extent that it is now, when I myself, my ex-wife is white, and we have a child.
Yeah.
And so obviously she's biracial.
Yeah.
But that's much more common. You have more of that lineage than mine.
Oh, really?
In Idaho, yeah.
Is there has there ever been a riot in Boise of some sort?
Oh, absolutely.
In Idaho.
So, yeah, so we had race riots perpetrated, like I said, against the Chinese in mass, and they literally murdered them and pushed them out of the state, and they're no longer here. Now, race riots perpetrated against blacks, that hasn't happened. We had race riots perpetrated against Native Americans. Yes, you had a couple massacres, but not as it precludes the black people. No race riots.
Really?
And so yeah, exactly. So that's my whole point. And so we're doing this whole narrative we're launching called A Place at the Table. That's all any people are seeking when it comes to when they're trying to ink out their own survival, or a space for their family, their people, their whatever, is they simply want to have the opportunity to be afforded voice by the stakeholders to decide how their people could contribute, and they will be able to thrive as well. And most people chuckle when we start doing it, but if you really look at the data, Idaho afforded a wide range of people that opportunity when other states did not. We also are home of like one of the most successful refugee relocation destinations in the world. My mosque I converted as a kid, the mosque I attended, I should say not mine, pardon me, has 45 ethnic groups from 38 countries. It's all directly related to refugee resettlement.
Is there any civil rights stuff that goes on in Idaho though? Does Dr. King ever have to come there for anything? Nothing like that?
No, he did not. But a woman there, we're actually in the process of trying to get a marker put up by the city of a woman who sent a letter, and the letter's in a museum back east, because she could not afford to go to the March on Washington, or the March on either Washington, or the march across I can't think of the bridge. Why am I losing the name?
The bridge in Montgomery.
Montgomery, thank you.
Yep.
That so she sent shoes as support because she couldn't afford to go back. And we're in the process of getting a marker put up in front of her house. Even our creation of the Human Rights Commission, my grandfather was like the first chair of that board, was, I believe, in the late 60s or mid 60s. So I'm not saying, again, we're not racial utopia. we simply, Black people, I'm really speaking directly towards Black people, because there is a difference when it comes to like the receptivity of Black refugees, because we're working on with the Ada County Sheriff currently on some disparities as far as the juvenile, not juvenile justice, but the justice field.
Right.
And the refugees are underrepresented in all aspects of criminal justice, unless you're talking about Black refugees.
Right.
Then they're disproportionately overrepresented, and that's indicative of, you know, a deeper problem. But the Black American experience, and I'm just speaking, you know,
Right.
strictly to
Right.
that, as far as America goes, not having a system put in place to ensure you would be forever a second-class citizen
Right.
did not exist here. And I challenge anybody to prove otherwise from a statistical and any milestone measure you want to do. And it's because we've never been deemed an existential threat, because as I said earlier, we're just about to eclipse 1% of the state's population.
How about this one then? Has there ever been a Black politician?
Yeah,
City
my mother
mayor,
actually.
state rep,
So
governor,
yeah,
anything.
Les Purse was the first Black mayor elected in Idaho, like back in the 70s. And then Mayor Joe B. McNeil was mayor in Mountain Home, which is large, you know, they have a base as well. My mother was elected to the Idaho legislature as a senator and in the House of Representatives. So it's Jerome Mapp was the first Black elected to city council in Boise. That's, again, it's different than the national narrative, because typically any given people kind of elect their own.
Right.
There aren't enough of us here to elect our own.
Got you.
So you have to have others advocating for you as well, or you'll never get elected.
I got you.
Again, and that lends itself to, I'm telling people, like, dude, Idaho used to be the world's best kept secret. And it's not because we're racial utopia. I'm strictly speaking as a Black man, and what you face in America.
Right.
Totally different narrative.
Do Black people move to Idaho?
So they do when they accidentally trip upon Idaho and realize, holy heavens, what is going on here? I just met a woman from New York. She was Dominican, but Black. Family repatriated to New York. She came out to visit because she'd never been to Idaho. This was literally last week. And she was kind of in awe. She's like, huh, y'all got something really different going on here. Because she said she was a little, you know, apprehensive at first, but then navigating, she's like, good God, this place is just different. I said, yeah, it really is. And again, I don't want people to think like I'm just some rah-rah.
Yeah, sure.
But it's an entirely different thing. So we went through our police shooting unarmed citizens issue back in the early 90s and mid 90s. Okay. The funny thing about Idaho was there was no argument whether or not this was a case of bad policing, because there was no racial component to it. They were all shooting of white kids or white people by white police officers. So it was all painfully obvious that we've got some improvements needed about how our police conduct themselves. So because that happened so long ago, we are literally 30 years in on practices and implementations of strategies to diminish this false dichotomy of police versus non-police, right? They fired the police chief, got a new police chief. He was good. They brought in a new police chief after he served his time. He was great, Chief Masterson, who really turned policing on its head and really made an effort to ensure to create the police force that they wanted. When he retired, Chief Bones took over, who came up under Chief Masterson's reign, continued those efforts, did even more, created like a Chiefs Citizen Advisory Panel. They cut off the Boise Academy, separated and created their own separate from the Idaho State Police Academy, so they could create what they wanted as far as policing from day one.
I got you.
As far as like use of force and any of those, numbers you go through to really see like what your police are doing, we are so astronomically at the bottom of that list now. It sways the data because our cops don't have like a myriad of complaints related to use
I got you. Let me ask you this. I got a couple more questions before we come close. Is there a Black-owned restaurant, bar, bar that
couple
if
few,
I come to town, I mean, cause I gotta support my people. Is there an older Black-owned bar restaurant that people go to?
A restaurant, there's one or two, and I know they have pop-up restaurants. Is something they do much more now. Like there's this place called Chow. They have like 4 or 5 restaurants within this bigger restaurant. It's kind of like a mall for restaurants,
Right.
and they'll do pop-up one-offs there. Oh, I can't believe his last name. Brother Brown has a restaurant right downtown. He has one, a soul food restaurant. There's quite a few.
There are some, okay.
Well, it's even crazier. So we have like ethnic, so like Somali restaurants, we have Mali restaurants, because we have such a large African diaspora population. So you can go Black American soul food, or you can go like Eritrean dishes, or you can go Somali dishes.
Oh,
those are all Black, but what is your nuance of Black? You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
And then, gosh forbid, if you want Iraqi food or whatever, it's just it's we got like the little world here.
Okay, how about this? This is on you and what you're doing. How did the museum get founded? Why somebody thought with such a small Black population to do it? Who did it? It was in the church. Tell us a little bit about the museum and what's there.
So the museum was the church. It was built by my great grandfather. When his when his daughter was getting older, the church bought a new church and we're going to move. And his daughter was still alive. She lived to be like 94 or 96. She told my mother, don't let them tear this church down. You need to do something with it. And mom was like, well, what am I supposed to do? She goes, we'll figure it out. And so my mom did. It was on the historical registry. Luckily, we have a very supportive community of all colors, all ethnic backgrounds. And they picked up the building, moved it across the street for 3 years, created a 501c3, got funding together, got the rights department. Julie Davis Park sold us a 100-year lease to the land for like $1 to put it in a park that at the time didn't allow you to put things in the park, but they did, and that worked out great. Okay. St. Luke's, a couple other companies kicked in financially. The company that moved the building did it free to help. I'm like, it was really like a community effort that said, hey, we want to do this. And then we opened up in 99, been running ever since. I took over a few years ago, and that's what we've done to kind of tell the story that hasn't been told about like the Black Idahoan. Yeah.
So what kind of exhibits do you have there?
So we have a permanent one. There's the Invisible Idahoan that kind of tells the history of Blacks coming to Idaho and the different nuances of how that was done, which is we're about to commit to a photo album, and we're going to do Invisible Idahoan 2.0, because we're going to go much more in depth about these various things that brought Blacks to Idaho, because the narrative is so disconnected to the Black narrative of our country. And people just aren't aware of that. And especially now, there's a clamoring for people to know how in the heavens does Boise have a Black History Museum?
Right.
And also, why is the history so rich? Because think about it, Tulsa, Oklahoma, when they had those race riots in 1921, was the same year the physical church that houses the museum was erected. Before that, it was a home ministry, and they didn't have land. They bought land actually from a Basque woman.
Okay.
And they were able to build the structure to say, hey, we are here, we will be here. About 20 or 30 years later, the parsonage was burnt down, but the church was not. But that's just indicative of how different the Black experience in 1921 was as opposed to the nation.
And so what's the website? How do people come and support you?
IBHM, like Idaho Black History Museum.org. We also have a Facebook page, Idaho Black History Museum. I need to get more hip to the hip talk and probably do all that Twitter and whatever Instagram stuff, but we haven't done that yet because it's just, I think we have a Twitter page. We put stuff out once in a while, but not as much as a coordinated effort. The website and Facebook, and luckily we have a great relationship with the press and the media. They give us great latitude and help doing what we need to do.
All right.
The governor went and did a proclamation the last 2 Juneteenths at the museum. The mayor's been great, this one and the former one. So we have a unique situation that both police chiefs came and spoke live and took questions in the museum when dealing with issues with, how to police given people properly, like proper policing.
Right.
Before it was the clamor of the nation, like 2 or 3 years ago, we did this. So we've really been fortunate that we get a lot of community support by those who aren't just Black.
Now, I guess this leads to one more question. Who comes to the museum? I mean, there's only so few Blacks. You got to have a lot of white patrons coming through, or visitors who come through Boise too, both.
So the first question I ask when people come in, are you local or visiting? Because 9/10 of the people that come to visiting are not local. They fly into the airport and somehow they find out we have a Black History Museum, and they drive down because we're not far from the airport, and they stop in and say, I just had to see it because I heard about it, or I went to the Idaho History Museum. I saw about XYZ on the news that you guys did, or saw something on YouTube or Facebook, whatever.
Okay.
They want to come check it out. And that's what we get. And we don't get, the majority of our visitors aren't Black. That's a good and a bad thing, right?
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you is there a festival in Boise or in Idaho, a Black History, some kind of festival?
We have Juneteenth, we have Soul Food Festival, we have,
oh, do you?
Forgot, yeah, we have another one. I just forgot what it was called, but they do different types of Black festivals. COVID's been a little, harder this year than last.
Okay.
But we get a wide range of support, and again, because our population being so infinitesimally small, it's majoritarily non-Black people.
Yeah, sure. Is there a question that I haven't asked you, something that you want to close on in that regard?
No, thank you. And I think we're doing our job. If in fact,
good.
I mean, the fact that you heard of us.
Hey, everybody, this is, I told you you was going to be surprised when you heard this. Man, this Black History experience it covers a gambit of things. It's not just, no one angle. I mean, he presented an angle I had not thought about. I hadn't even thought about going to Iowa. I mean, not Iowa, Idaho. I'm sorry.
We get that a lot. We get that a lot.
Part of them, but I gotta show up. Cause that's not the Juneteenth, but the other festival. When is it?
That just passed, actually. They
but
just passed
it's
like
September or August.
I think so. It was the end of August. The end of
August.
In
August. Okay, it might be. And the weather is good. How long? What's the weather?
Almost for the most part. Our winters are very mild. Now we had a blowback winter 2 years ago, like we used to have back in the day.
Yeah.
Like 30 years ago. But then last winter went right back to being mild.
So mild means 40 degrees in January?
If it's 30 or 20, I mean, you'll see cats wearing shorts. It's tolerable. We don't get like that Detroit stuff that y'all get.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And the summers get in the 80s and 90s?
Oh, no. Summers get like 110 or, 102.
Oh, really?
But there's absolutely no humidity. So it's an entirely different 100. Like we'll still go run and work out and whatever, because it's not humid. You're not overheating.
Okay.
Yeah, we have no humidity.
Well, hey, everybody, like I said, I told you you'd be surprised to hear this story, and there it is.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. To you, my brother. Oh, now, before I say that, though, but everybody, what I want you to do is hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button on this video. Hit the notifications bell. Tell somebody about strong inspiration. Don't keep it to yourself. Watch my movie on Amazon. Read my book. It's good. It's gooder than good. And throw some money at that museum. How about that? Go to the website. There's a donation column, I'm sure. And let's support them there. Let's go to to some of the festivals. Let's go out and visit and see another way of life and integrate ourselves for that weekend, or however long you can stay. And so to you, my brother, I say this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing there, man. You showing them people, and you gotta breaking up some of that consciousness. You know what I mean? Because they saying, hey, you here to stay, and all this rich history in your family. I'm glad you sharing that. And so stay safe and stay on your grind doing that. And with that, I'll say, everybody, we out. Have a good one.
Thank you much.
Yeah.